The Galactic Fleet's flagship Solace of the Stars was on the verge of catastrophe. The massive reactor at its core had gone silent, and with it the hopes of the entire mission hung in the balance. A cloud of stress clung to the bridge, thick enough to cut through. Admiral Orban Drax's face was as hard as granite, his alien eyes glinting with frustration. "How long until the reactor is back online?" he demanded, his voice crackling with impatience. The engineering team huddled around their consoles, faces drawn with defeat. They had tried everything, every command, every protocol, but nothing had worked. They couldn't fix it. The Solace was about to drift into a void of space, cold and lifeless. We need more time, sir. We need time." The Admiral's voice boomed across the command deck. "I've got a fleet to manage, not a dying heap of metal. If it's so easy, fix the reactor." The words were a challenge, a snarl spat in the face of his crew's helplessness. But there was someone in the background who had been silently observing. Elizabeth, the human janitor, stood quietly near the doorway, pushing a mop across the polished floors. She had been doing her usual rounds, scrubbing, cleaning, tending to the mundane tasks that no one else wanted. She was human, and according to most, that was all she was. A lowly, insignificant cog in the grand machinery of the fleet. But Elizabeth knew something the others didn't. She knew how to fix things when no one else could. Evan, her colleague and a fellow janitor, stood just a few feet away. He was tall, lean, with a kind but weary expression. Unlike Elizabeth, who preferred to blend into the background, Evan had become something of a silent confidant to the crew. His skills weren't just about cleaning. He had a knack for understanding how things worked on a level deeper than anyone expected. The Admiral's voice cut through the tension again. "I don't care who you are, fix it." Elizabeth's eyes flicked to Evan. They exchanged a brief, knowing glance. Evan's lips quirked into a wry smile. With a sigh, Elizabeth set her mop aside and stepped forward. The Admiral barely registered her presence at first. Humans rarely did. But when she spoke, her voice was calm, almost too calm for the situation. "Sir," Elizabeth said, her words measured, "I can fix the reactor. But it'll take just a few minutes." The Admiral turned sharply, his brow furrowing. "What? You? A janitor?" "Yes, sir. A janitor," Elizabeth replied with an unflinching look in her eyes. "The problem is that the reactor's cooling system is clogged. A simple blockage in the filtration lines. A quick removal will get the whole thing running again." The Admiral's laughter echoed across the bridge. "Are you serious? What makes you think you can fix a reactor? What makes you think you could understand the mechanics of this vessel?" Elizabeth didn't flinch. "Because I've been cleaning this ship for months. I know every inch of it. I can fix this." Evan stepped closer, his deep voice adding weight to her words. "You'd be surprised what she can do when she sets her mind to it?" The Admiral scowled. "Fine, you think you're so clever, human, then go ahead. Fix it. But you have 5 minutes." Elizabeth didn't need any more encouragement. With a quick, efficient movement, she strode toward the access hatch leading to the reactor core. The crew watched, confused but intrigued. The Admiral's disbelief was palpable, but he couldn't deny the truth in her words. The ship's vast mechanical heart was a labyrinth of pulsing lights and humming machinery, all controlled by an alien race far more advanced than Earth had ever been. But Elizabeth didn't care about the complexity. She wasn't here to understand the grandiose theories. She had learned the hard way that there was always a way to fix things. If you were willing to look closely enough. It took her mere seconds to locate the problem. The filtration system was clogged, simple but catastrophic if left unchecked. With practiced hands, Elizabeth unclipped the damaged access panel, exposing the tangled mess of cables, pipes, and machinery. She grabbed a tool from her utility belt, something basic but versatile, and got to work. M, hovering nearby, watched her movements with admiration. He'd seen her work wonders before, fixing broken appliances in the galley, mending cracked walls, and even repairing the air scrubbers with nothing but her tools and a relentless determination. 5 minutes passed. The Admiral paced nervously, muttering to himself. Elizabeth, however, remained focused, Her brow furrowed as she worked quickly but precisely. Finally, she stood up, wiping her hands on her uniform. "Done," she said simply, the Admiral's expression twisted in disbelief. "What do you mean, done?" "Just check it," Elizabeth said, her voice unwavering. Evan nodded. "She's got it." The Admiral, despite himself, stalked over to the control panel, and with the press of a button, the reactor hummed back to life. Energy surged through the ship, the lights flickering brightly as the vessel began to power up again. The air shifted, filled with a new vibrancy as the solace seemed to come alive. The entire crew stood in stunned silence. Looking at Elizabeth, "Impossible," the Admiral muttered, his voice filled with awe and a begrudging respect. "You really did it." Elizabeth glanced at Evan, then back at the Admiral. "Sometimes it's the little things that make the biggest difference." Evan chuckled, clapping her on the back. "Told you she could do it." The Admiral, still recovering from the shock, finally offered a nod. "Human ingenuity. I can't argue with that." As the ship resumed its mission, Elizabeth and Evan returned to their duties. Janitors, yes, but the crew would never look at them the same way again.